Good day, everybody. My name is Florian Nuţă, and I'm a professor of finance and accounting. And I'm happy to be here with you today and discuss about the financial framework's role in moderating the human-centered development effects on environmental quality. Now, to begin with, environment and environmental quality and all the issues regarding environment, including climate change mitigation, pollution, greenhouse gas emissions, and so on, are not alone and without any connections with the other features of human activity, including economic, social, and of course, financial. Why the financial system and financial framework is important, and I will tell you today the relationship between financial features and human development, because as the conference is for climate change in the last years mentioned, financial resources limitation is one of the main challenges for world nations, institutions, organizations, governments, and so on. Now, we all know about the existence of Global North and Global South. This differentiation between the two big major categories of countries is quite connected with the distribution of financial resources and the possibilities of those countries in the global south, mainly emerging or underdeveloped countries, to fight alone with the climate change causes and with the climate change effects, because it was already demonstrated in previous research that a lot of countries in the global south are at risk when we are talking about the effects of climate change. So let's begin with this study. We are starting by saying that the era of prioritizing economic growth, regardless of its overall impact, has ended. We cannot talk anymore about thinking only big when it's about economic growth. We cannot even talk only about economic growth. We have to refine this discourse and discuss more about economic development, economic sustainability, economic sustainable development, circularity, and so on. So all these concepts are basically an integrative approach that will address global development and will be increasingly human-centered and also environmentally friendly, as well as promoting social resilience and other features that come together. So the multiple crises also underline the need for a long-term focus on resilient, sustainable, and inclusive development. You see, we also discuss about inclusivity. We also discuss about just transition, for example, when we are discussing energy. All these new concepts are actually not as new as it would seem to be. There are pretty old, but they are refined and reshaped to include a lot of other elements of human development that will include not only economic growth and human-centered social and economic development, but also other aspects. Most of them we can see if we are reviewing the Sustainable Development Goals. Under these circumstances, this research I prepared explores the beneficial role of a mature and inclusive financial architecture on environmental quality, emphasizing the impact of human development. In previous literature, most of these features were addressed individually or maybe in some connections with each other. Anyway, the findings are quite diverse and I might say inconclusive. Previous research and previous studies discovered, for example, that human development can bring a negative impact on the environmental quality or can improve and contribute to environmental regeneration. Also, financial development and inclusivity, it's also debated in previous literature with various findings, both negative and positive. The most used and debated features describing financial system were the financial system's depth, the accessibility, and its efficiency. Of course, renewable energy, green innovation are widely discussed, and many studies included these two features for describing energy transition or just describing our potential of switching and changing the paradigm, the economic development paradigm, from energy intensity and energy intensity based on fossil and classical fuels to energy diversification and the expansion of these new sources of energy. Also, green innovation is many times seen as a moderator between keeping the economic growth going and the economic output generation moving along, and environmental regeneration, environmental protection, talking about those new technologies that are addressing green aspects or just indirectly having benefits for reducing carbon emissions or for contributing to environmental regeneration. Also, another interesting feature is economic freedom. Economic freedom is interesting because its influence, its effects on environmental quality depends on the national or regional context. Because if we are talking about having an increased level of economic freedom in a well-established free market, with strong institutions, with a significant rule of law, a low level of corruption, and so on. So the economic freedom will generate beneficial economic output, and also will take into consideration human development, social development, and also environmental needs. What we are trying to see at the end of this study, what we are trying to contribute with the results and the findings of this empirical analysis. We are using the Human Development Index instead of GDP for describing economic and social development. So we are switching from just describing the economic growth to a more diverse way of discussing development. We are highlighting the differences between developed and developing countries regarding the human development and financial development and inclusivity. And we are discussing the role of financial development and inclusivity in reducing the ecological footprint and carbon emissions. So in our opinion, these three major aspects are relevant for this study and are relevant for expanding knowledge in this field. So for the empirical analysis, we are using as independent variables the Human Development Index, the financial development, economic freedom, green innovation, renewable energy use, and for the dependent variables, the ecological footprint and the carbon emissions. We are trying to assess the relationship between these variables in the context of a selection of European nations. The main method we are using is the two-step generalized method of moments, and to test the robustness of the results coming from the main method, we are using the Driscoll-Cray estimator. Why we are doing this? Because the GMM is adequate to real-world data that may not strictly conform to theoretical hypotheses. And when confronted with inaccuracies in the underlying model's definition, the two-step GMM demonstrate significant robustness. So after checking, preliminary checking our set of data, we concluded that the two-step GMM is a good and a robust method. So I'm not going to stay a lot on statistical figures and coefficients, but I want to tell you something about the results and the significance of these results. So the first significant and relevant finding for us is that financial development and inclusivity significantly reduce carbon emissions and ecological footprint. So having a developed financial system that also ensure the inclusion of as many as possible social categories and people is also good not only for the people and for the economic activity, but also for mitigating environmental issues. The next result, the next finding is that the Human Development Index increases ecological footprint and carbon emissions. This is quite interesting, but we can explain that by the fact that, well, humans are having different consumption behaviors. And by consumption behavior, I'm talking about daily consumption, but also I can discuss about energy patterns, mobility patterns, why not, and other elements that include goods and services with some ecological footprint. And of course, when we are developing new needs and we are achieving new standards of living, we may affect these two features. However, the good thing here is that financial development and inclusivity moderates the negative impact of human development on environmental welfare. So, okay, we can say that human development may include some ecological footprints and may include some addition of carbon emissions, but if we are talking about a system with a financial framework, well-established financial framework, which also is quite inclusive, this negative impact of human development may be moderated, may be diminished by these beneficial effects of financial system and inclusive financial system. Of course, renewable energy consumption is good for environmental quality and also green innovation. These two variables are control variables, so it is clear that both are beneficial for environmental quality and environmental regeneration. At the end, the Driscoll-Cray estimator confirms the destructive effect of Human Development Index on the ecological quality and carbon emissions. These are the main statistical figures, but I will not insist on this. The conclusion is that according to our results, financial development and inclusivity reduces carbon emissions and ecological footprints. Also, human development contributes to increasing the ecological footprint in both country groups, both developed and developing. But the good news, as I've told you before, the moderating role of financial development and inclusivity on the destructive effects of human development. So this is quite important, this moderating effect, because seeing this, we can shape and we can suggest new public policies, new public instruments to use this moderating effect without altering and without hampering the human development. Because we all need human development, right? But we need a human development that is connected with the needs of the environment. It's connected with the need of mitigating climate change effects and pollution. So if we are seeing that the financial development and an inclusive financial system can moderate that, we can use you can use this element at the benefit of this. And of course, renewable energy and green innovation are essential for maintaining environmental quality. Starting from this couple of conclusions based on the main results, we can suggest several policy implications here. The first will be that it is important supporting the access to financial resources for financing human development in a functional way. So it is good to include as many people in the financial system, and these people have access to financial resources and the right and the proper capability of accessing resources and using those resources properly. This may include public programs for financial education, may include subsidies for companies, may include the diversity of public instruments to attract and to include as many as individuals possibly in the financial system. Also, the interaction between human development and financial development has a significant potential to reduce environmental footprints and carbon emissions in developed countries. So this moderating effect is multiplied by the national context, how that nation is already developed and already systemized and have access to a lot of beneficial instruments. For example, developed countries are also good institutionally. So in developed countries, we can find strong institutional systems. The institutions are working, okay? This is important because in developing countries or underdeveloped countries, we all know that they are struggling, they are still struggling with those structural gaps. We say structural gaps, but we are talking about the way the institutions are working. And if the institutions are not working, the public policies cannot work, because the institutions are those who put in place public instruments and public policies. So if the national context is characterized by corruption, by inefficiency in using financial resources, in using natural resources, and other things that are not working, for example, labor market and so on, that national context will not be beneficial for this moderating effect. Furthermore, the financial institutions and governmental authorities are both a part of the solution for rethinking growth patterns, directing financial flows towards environmental friendly projects and initiatives, green finance, blue finance, carbon border adjustment mechanisms, so on, Green Deal in Europe, and a lot of others. Another statement that can generate a public policy recommendation is that including green innovation and renewable energy among development options. So when we are talking about investing in something, investing in the development of that nation, we may want to take into consideration these two features. One is the green innovation, and the second, renewable energy. Renewable energy meaning renewable energy generation capabilities, but also the use of renewable energy. And we are talking about infrastructure, national grids, and so on. And another important statement here is that all development policies must include components related to innovation oriented to lowering the environmental footprint. So we cannot talk anymore about policies that aim for increasing economic output, and that's all. We cannot talk about public policies that target employment, and that's all. All these public policies and public policy targets must be connected together and must be connected with other priorities, such as the environmental one. So, saying that, we can see that only targeted policies are not enough anymore. The mix of policy and the mix that is taking into consideration the proper use of financial resources and a diversity of targets and features, including economic aspects, social aspects, and environmental aspects, will ensure that human development will not be detrimental to environmental welfare, but will move together and will develop together. Thank you for your attention. It was a pleasure being with you today, and I am open to questions, comments. I will gladly receive them and answer. Bye bye.